God damn it, Kris, where the hell are we? That was a meme circulating around the internet back in 2022, which involved sending Kris and Susie into other universes where White Susie would ask how they got there. People were getting so bored of waiting for Chapter 3 of Deltarune, they started putting this duo into everything. Hell of a Boss, Family Guy, Super Smash Bros, Soviet Russia, you name it, because Kris and Susie were there. The meme became so popular that someone made a whole fan game that involved this concept called Deltatraveler. This game sends Kris and Susie into the worlds of Undertale and Earthbound, so let's see how this concept was handled. Now, because this game is a meme, there isn't much to say regarding story. The narrative involves Gaster inviting Kris, Susie, Noelle, and the player to come meet him in the void. The party has to traverse through grey doors until they reach Undertale's golden corridor where Gaster will be waiting for them. With this setup, each section of Undertale will be replaced with a section from another game or AU. If I had to guess, I don't think the plot with the Dark Nurse has anything to do with the Delta Warriors, as Gaster claims he can set Kris free, presumably from the player's control. Each section involves that particular universe's enemies, mobs, bosses, with the music, sound effect, and equipment available changing as you go along. With the rough story out of the way, let's take a look at the sections. The first section of this game involved the ruins. This area was effectively copied and pasted into this fan game, where the only real difference is that Kris and Susie are reacting to the absurdity of the world around them. While the game's not all that different, I like the duo's reaction with Flowey. Flowey's meta commentary on how Susie is supposed to be on his side because that's how the battle system worked in Undertale was hilarious, especially since Susie forced herself into your party and made Flowey blast off. The confrontation between Kris and Toriel is a mixed bag, as to Kris they're seeing their mother, but Toriel is seeing a child that vaguely resembles Kara. I like how they kept Toriel in character with her motherly personality, but didn't try to make her stop the Delta Warriors from leaving. In neither the regular routes nor the Novorsity route are they putting Kris and Toriel against each other. Now, some minor things I liked was Rouse just hanging around smoking weed and not helping whatsoever, as well as Toriel alluding to the royal scientist in Hotland being Gaster instead of Alphys, hinting that Toriel remembers Gaster after he fell out of world, and knowing about alternate universes means that being in the ruins might have kept her memory intact. If you read between the lines, it gives depth to a character who didn't get as much in the original game. I know we got Omega Flowey and the Astral Dreamer fight in Undertale, but it was great to face off against Flowey without any MacGuffins. This is base form Flowey. While not being the strongest, he can put up a fight. This is exactly how I would imagine an experienced level 1 player to fight. His patterns were complex, showing that this isn't his first rodeo, but his lack of EXP in this run makes it easy to steamroll him, as there is only so much he can do at the beginning of the game. Moving on, the Undertale section ends with Noelle joining the party, because she's here for some reason, and Sans saying he'll help you get to Hotland so Alphys could send you home. After walking to the grey door, the player finds themselves in Earthbound. Now, the Earthbound section is where the game really gets to flex its muscles, both in concept and execution. Undertale and Deltarune are close enough that mixing elements of the two wouldn't be too jarring. I know, how surprising that games made by the same people share elements. But with Earthbound, I think the creator found a way to give both a familiar yet unique situation. First off, the Deltatravelers came in with the Earthbound art style, but quickly changed to a more recognizable Deltarune-ish style. And they actually took this opportunity to build the area from the ground up, not being reused from Earthbound. By doing this, the Delta Warriors didn't stick out like sore thumbs, but actually look like they belong. Seeing and interacting with other humans was a nice contrast from the previous areas filled with monsters, and the sprite works for the mobs were stellar, using Undertale's black and white color scheme for more basic enemies while combining the battle backs from Earthbound and the TP system from Deltarune. You'd think the amalgamation of all these battle systems would work against each other, but they homogenize in a way I believe works. Also, making the blue cultists the only enemies in the game to deviate from the black and white sprite format shows attention to details, because their own goal was to paint the world blue. Stupid goal, but at least they were paying attention. Either way, we come to learn that Porky and the blue cultists took over the town and kidnapped Paula, a player character from Earthbound. After being broken out of captivity by the Delta Warriors, Paula sprains her ankles and needs to be escorted to the sanctuary in Lilliput's stead so she could heal. After stealing a bomb and fighting a mole, they come face to face with Porky, utilizing a sentient mech, which I believe is the same one he has from the final battle in Earthbound. I like how this game brings in a weakened version of the final bosses for these respective games, as the end of each section. They are reasonably the best the world has to offer at that point, even if they have yet to reach their prime. Porky arrives at the Grey Doors to stop the Delta Warriors as he believes their affairs in the space-time continuum will interfere with Gigas' plans. Even after whittling down his HP, he gives the player an ultimatum that if they attack the mech who he forced to fight against them, it will die, but if they spare him, he'll live to see another day. It's a moral dilemma where he technically hasn't gone off the deep end / done anything beyond redemption yet. It's a situation where would you kill someone for what they'll do later? That's what they presented, but Ness swoops in to save the day and sends Porky blasting off like Team Rocket. Ness and Paula are technically meeting for the first time, but they decide to return to the status quo while the Delta Warriors move on to the next area. The third section revolves around GG Underfell. Rhino GG's very own version of Underfell, however it's incomplete as of the making of this video, so instead I'm going to take the opportunity to talk about the Obliteration Route. While this game excels at capturing the humorous side to Undertale, Deltatraveler, and Earthbound, I think the same could be said for its cruelty in the Obliteration Route. This game's Obliteration Route still captures the cruelty of the No Mercy route from Undertale, with hunting down enemies as the once cheerful music slows down, but this game goes a step forward as the responsibility is shared throughout the party. It's not just Kris doing the killing, so they have to account for Susie and Noelle going along with it. While the route plays mostly the same with some commentary from Susie, it takes a turn once you get to Naftabluk. Using Kris, you command Susie to use magic on Naftabluk, which in turn kills him, something that didn't happen before. Based on Susie's dialogue, you start to understand that she didn't want to kill him, but the player made her. This Obliteration Route is all about coerced killings and your allies slowly losing faith in you, but they have no choice but to follow your lead. And also another note, in the Undertale section, if you try to tell Toriel about your antics, Kris will break their own soul, as killing their own mother is a step too far. Toriel is the only one to get spared, but even Flowey doesn't escape your rampage. His final lines about Kara followed by his own corpse being split in two is gruesome, especially since he won't dust. Your grinding continues on to the next area with Miss Snowgrave over there. The party eventually gets so strong that you'll begin drawing blood from enemies they defeat. In Undertales, the enemy would just dust, meaning you could for the most part ignore them, but in the Earthbound section, their corpses will remain there after battle. Both Susie and Noelle just look for any excuse to explain your behavior. It shows more and more how they detest your actions, while over time growing to deny your demands. Now on your killing spree, you'll get ambushed by an NPC which will give you a concussion. This concussion causes your stats to be lowered, effectively putting you at a disadvantage in every battle until you reach the sanctuary to get healed. With Kris being weakened, Paula doesn't join the party but forces herself to find Ness because she thinks she could help. If you pay close attention, you'll see her stumble when leaving the cell, meaning she still sprained her ankle, but is forcing through the pain to help you before she realizes you're the murderers. After arriving at the sanctuary and being healed, the party gets confronted by Ness and Paula, who wants to stop your killing spree before you start to raise other worlds. It's really morbid to think about how both Susie and Noelle try to get Ness and Paula to run away, or to let them through, because both of them know they couldn't stop Kris. The fight itself gives massive red v gold vibes, as it's essentially player versus player. If you try to damage Paula, she'll continuously heal, like you'd imagine a player to do, so you have to take out Ness first. Another thing is that both Susie and Noelle refuse to land the final hit on Ness because they don't want to kill a child? Reasonable. Upon killing Ness, Paula is unable to heal him and starts attacking in grief as the Halloween hack rendition of Megalovania plays in the background. Regarding the second phase, Susie and Noelle will sometimes not attack as they're racked with guilt, so you have to pay close attention to their sprites. Kris isn't being nerfed anymore, but you're still at a disadvantage in this fight. Eventually, Paula falls, and the consequences are pretty damning if you think about it. Without Ness and Paula, this world just lost half the people who can stand against Gigas, and Porky's still out there, being able to do whatever he pleases. You basically condemned the world to destruction by killing these two. Also, if we look back at Undertale, Frisk arrives in the underground as you're leaving, so by doing an Obliteration route, you lock Frisk out of both a true pacifist and a no mercy route. I'm not sure resetting will undo Kris's actions, as Frisk didn't even get to the first save point, so Frisk is technically stuck on the neutral route every single time, because they can't true reset. It only really starts to sink in how cruel your actions is when you contextualize it after the fact. Another thing I want to note is that if you look at Susie and Noelle's portraits in the Section 3 area, you'll see that Susie is covering her eyes again, as you can interpret it as Susie no longer seeing Kris as her friend. which is kind of gut-wrenching. The only thing left to talk about is hard mode, where you can play as Frisk instead of Kris. Seeing Frisk and Susie team up is a bit weird, but there are some notable differences. Because Toriel isn't sent into mourning upon seeing Frisk, she's a lot more wary around Susie. Though Susie and Toriel will get into arguments about how to best handle Frisk, to let them leave the ruins or do what they want. This leads into a boss fight with her, which you couldn't do before. After talking her down or whittling her HP, Toriel will admit she was being harsh and let Frisk continue on their journey. Eventually, while traveling to ruins, you'll find Kris's knife and realize Flowey kidnapped Kris because Susie wasn't with them. Flowey sees Kris as Kara and tries to take their soul for his own, but Kris and Susie manage to beat him. After meeting up with Noelle, Kris wakes up, but before they can interact, Kris gets kidnapped by Gaster. In the most casual manner as well. While there's an optional fight where you could battle the Darkener vessel, Gaster outright explains that he needs the Delta warriors to arrive at that location for his experiment, and tells Frisk to lead them there, through killing or sparing. Oh yeah, Des is here too for some reason. Otherwise, that's all the game currently has to offer. There is a beta for Section 3 out right now, but I'm going to wait until it's completed. I think the game handles the concept well. Even if it started as mean, I think the Earthbound section showed the potential in this setup. I'm iffy on the next section being Undertale again, as it's just another underground. I feel like what you could do with the underground is limited inherently by the location, even if it takes place in an alternate universe, but maybe I'll be proven wrong. Having said that, I enjoyed the game and I'm looking forward to future installments. I'll leave a download link in the description. What are your thoughts on Deltatraveler? Let me know in the comment sections down below. It's been Esril, hope you've enjoyed. Peace.